I'm Aaron Porras, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu meets with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The United States makes a major move against Egypt and will reveal the latest breakthrough in green cancer-fighting advancements. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu has just met in Russia with President Vladimir Putin, joined by his top security council to address the growing threat of Iran in Syria. This is a critical meeting that the Israeli envoy has been prepping for quite some time now, one which holds high stakes for Israeli security.
מחר אצא לפגישה עם נשיא רוסיה ולדימיר פוטין. הצטרפו אליי ראש המוסד וראש המטה לביטחון לאומי. אני אדון איתו על הניסיון המואץ של איראן להתבסס צבאית בסוריה. זה עדות כמובן לתוקפנות של איראן, שלא פחתה כהוא זה אחרי הסכם הגרעין, אבל זה גם מציב בעיה לא רק לישראל, אלא לכל מדינות המזרח התיכון ולעולם כולו.
Russia became a major player in the Syrian civil war when it entered the fray back in 2015 in support of President Assad, leading airstrikes and bombings against the Syrian rebels. This has often put Russia at odds with Israel because the IDF has been carrying out raids against Syrian weapons transfers for some years now. But the stakes are high for Israel to broker some kind of agreement with Russia as well, especially as Iranian presence in Syria has skyrocketed in the wake of the instability.
אדוני הנשיא, אנחנו מנצחים כולנו במאמץ בינלאומי אדיר את דאעש, וזה דבר מבורך מאוד. אבל מה שלא מבורך הוא שבמקומות שדאעש יוצא, איראן נכנסת. ואנחנו לא שוכחים לרגע שאיראן מוסיפה לאיים כל יום על השמדת ישראל. היא מחמשת ארגוני טרור, היא מחוללת טרור בעצמה.
Just last week, we revealed that Iran was nearly finished building a massive missile factory in Syria, potentially placing thousands of Iranian rockets within range of Israeli soil, which means Netanyahu has a lot at stake in the meeting with Putin. Now, as big of an issue as Iran's presence in Syria is, let's not forget that the terror group Hezbollah, which Iran also supports, is right on our northern border. And they've been very active lately. Joining me to discuss some of Hezbollah's recent activities is former senior Israeli Air Force Commander, Colonel Kobi Regev. Colonel, thank you very much for joining me today and coming back to the program.
Thank you.
Now, my first question for you is, we've heard about recent drone attacks on behalf of Hezbollah against ISIS or Daesh. What do you make of that?
Well, we know that the Hezbollah for the last year is in an arm race in order to acquire capabilities, military capabilities, whether it's in the ground, in the sea, and now it's in the air. We have seen a movie that the Hezbollah has released just recently, and I can tell you from the professional point of view that it's a minor issue, in the sense that this UAV, probably even a drone, has been carrying what we call the stupid bombs, which you deliver inaccurately to the targets. We didn't see the targets what he attacked, so we don't know if it was effective or not. And so the overall effective on the battlefield from this specific drone is very minor.
So is there good or bad, or does it really not matter that Hezbollah is using this type of technology? Is there anything that Israel should be worried about the fact that Hezbollah is using drones?
Sure. From the drone point of view, we know that they have more sophisticated UAVs. We already intercepted few of them in the past. Okay. So it's not the high-end technology from the UAV point of view or drone point of view. Israel should and is concerned in other type of weapons that the Hezbollah is trying to acquire, such as air defense, missiles against ships.
Ground-to-air missile defense?
Ground-to-air missile defense. We know that they are trying to acquire it from Syria and Iran. And we should concern, and according to foreign press, Israel has did some activity in order to stop the flow from Syria to Hezbollah in Lebanon.
So how do you see this issue escalating or advancing? How do you see this progressing through time? Because we have Iran on the Eastern Front, pumping tons of weapons into Syria, funneling them to Hezbollah and other militant groups on another border. Where does this go? Where does this end up?
We should look about the Hezbollah as a proxy of Iran. Hezbollah equal Iran. We know that Iran is trying to build a bridge from Iran through Iraq, through the Shia in Iraq, through Syria to Lebanon, and directly from the northern Golan in Israel. And Israel is quite concerned about this activity, the involvement of Iran in Syria. We have seen earlier that Benjamin Netanyahu has talked with Putin about it because it's a great threat to Israel.
See, so I guess my final question for you very quickly, do you see the future of airborne warfare in unmanned or manned vehicles?
Wow, it's a big question. I will say that within time, the balance between the UAV and the manned aircraft will shift. The balance will be a little bit more UAV and maybe less manned aircraft. I believe that manned aircraft will always be in the future a part of the warfare,
upper priority,
because you need the pilots the person to be a part of the battlefield, to see what's going on with their eyes, and not depend on a communication between ground station and the UAVs, which communication that you can block. So in the future, the UAV will be more dominant, but still pilots like me will be a part of the warfare in the future.
All right, well, Colonel Kobi Regev, thank you very much for coming in again.
Thank you for having me. Goodbye.
All right, now this is some shocking news. The Shin Bet has just revealed that 20 Israelis have left Israel and defected to ISIS. The majority of them are Arab Israelis who illegally crossed across the border into Syria to enlist in the Islamic State's army. But perhaps most surprising is the fact that at least 2 of these people were actually Jewish, who then converted to Islam before joining up with the Islamic State. Both had immigrated from the former Soviet Union to Israel at a young age. One was a 32-year-old man from Lod, and the other was actually a 28-year-old woman from Ashdod. Since the rise of the Islamic State in the Middle East, the Shin Bet believes around 60 Israelis have left Israel to join the Islamic State in one form or another, but this is probably the first time Israeli Jews have been confirmed in the ranks of ISIS. Israel's Interior Ministry is now stripping the citizenship of 19 of these 20 Israelis, as one is believed to have been killed fighting for ISIS. So far, Israel has done an impressive job of preventing ISIS from infiltrating Israel's borders, but it's certainly troubling to see any Israeli of any demographic joining with the terrorists. Busting weapons smuggling rings is all in a day's work for Israel's border police, but this latest catch may be one of the most creative, or at least the smelliest. Inspectors just discovered a massive arsenal of weapons being smuggled into the West Bank in a garbage truck. In a joint coordination by Israel's border police and the Defense Ministry, police were able to identify the garbage truck leaving East Jerusalem, heading for the West Bank village of Idna. Hiding dozens of M16 automatic rifle parts, the truck's driver attempted to pass the vehicle through a military checkpoint in southern Jerusalem, but police sappers quickly flagged the truck and sent it directly to the border police. After arresting the driver and passenger, the police seized the weapons and sent the truck in for screening. It's still unclear exactly how many weapons were being transported in the truck, since the pieces were disassembled and hidden in the trash, but sources are already saying this is an unusually large shipment. Israeli security is always working around the clock to prevent weapons smuggling into the West Bank like this, even if they have to literally dig through the trash with their bare hands to do it. Now, in the 2015 elections, the Haredi parties saw their worst results in years, losing a staggering 5 seats in the Israeli Knesset. But now it looks like they're trying to gain back some of their former strength in the government by coming together and forming one massive joint Haredi party. This is a tactic that, of course, worked very well for the Joint Arab List in the last elections, which united the 3 Arab parties and effectively organized them in time to land new chairs in the Israeli parliament. One of the Haredi party members, Israel Eichler, has just gone on record about the idea, which could potentially end years of Haredi party arguments and infighting over the allocation of seats within the Knesset. He said, quote, "The good thing about the Haredi parties is that they're like kindergarten students who fight and argue and bicker. But the moment the rabbi steps into the room, they're quiet," end quote. Eichler is now saying that he's been pushing for years for a joint Haredi party modeled after the Arab Joint List, even commending the Arab party's ability to unite amidst fierce internal divisions. With many speculating on Prime Minister Netanyahu's future in the wake of recent corruption allegations, the time may be just right for the Haredi parties to finally join forces ahead of possible upcoming elections. Now it looks like Switzerland is the latest country to stop funding terrorism. The Swiss Foreign Ministry is freezing its donation money to a Palestinian NGO, one believed to be funneling money to fund terror against Israel. The NGO in question, the Human Rights International Humanitarian Law Secretariat, has a yearly budget of about $4 million, but many experts believe that most of this money has been used to fuel radical Palestinian terror cells, and Switzerland isn't the first to freeze its funding. Just 2 months ago, Denmark suspended $8 million in payments to various Palestinian non-governmental organizations, following similar steps by Holland. The president of Jerusalem's NGO Monitor Group has praised the Swiss government's decision, saying the move is a critical first step by the Swiss Foreign Ministry to hold NGOs accountable for potentially criminal misuse of funds. Switzerland is now conducting an internal investigation into how the NGO uses its donations, after which it will make a final decision about whether to continue payments or else cut ties indefinitely. All right, well, less than a day before President Trump's Middle East peace envoy was set to meet with President Sisi of Egypt, the United States announced that it was cutting almost $300 million of financial aid to Egypt. As one might expect, Egyptian officials were quite displeased by the news, and now it looks like they've canceled their meeting with Jared Kushner. Kushner is in Cairo right now and had planned on sitting with the Egyptian president to discuss reopening peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians. Negotiations have been at a standstill since 2014, and this latest American envoy is the Trump administration's first real push for its new Middle East peace plan. But now things already appear to have hit a major snag. Citing Egypt's failure to address human rights violations, the United States is cutting $290 million of financial aid that was supposed to go to Egypt. This money is part of a 1979 peace treaty between Israel, Egypt, and the United States, which committed over $1 billion United States dollars to Egypt annually. President Sisi's sudden cancellation of today's Jared Kushner meeting shows just how severely this may impact Trump's peace mission. Peace between Israel and the Palestinians requires delicate negotiations with many Middle East nations, especially with Egypt, who holds a border with Gaza and has a peace treaty with Israel. Although Egypt has agreed to meet the rest of the Trump envoy at another scheduled meeting later in the day, Israel has reportedly asked the United States to reverse its decision to cut Egyptian aid. It's probably because rocking the boat in Egypt could rattle stability in one of the few places where Israel has a solid partner in security. Right after the meeting in Cairo, Kushner's envoy will land here in Israel and meet with Israeli and Palestinian leaders first thing tomorrow. After outlawing Twitter for the last 8 years, it looks like Iran may finally be about to hit the follow button. The new Iranian communications minister has just announced that talks are underway with Twitter to bring the social media platform back to life in Iran. Iran, of course, has had a strict policy of censorship against electronic information for years, especially after the widespread anti-regime protests in 2009. The country officially outlawed Twitter after suspicions arose of election tampering in the election of former President Ahmadinejad, and both Facebook and YouTube have also been blocked. But Iran's new Minister of Communications has just announced that talks are already underway to officially unblock Twitter. He said, quote, "Considering the current situation, there are grounds for such negotiation and interaction. Twitter is not an immoral environment needing to be blocked," end quote. Now, although social media sites like these are outlawed, many still find a way to use them through VPN and privacy software, and even Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has Twitter accounts in several languages. But this unblocking of Twitter, which still needs to be cleared by the conservative Iranian courts, would be a major step forward for a company with a history of free speech and censorship violations. Many are also hoping that opening Iran's virtual borders could lead to a more informed and globalized Iranian people. Let's hope Iran makes this one Facebook official. Israeli film has been going through a renaissance of sorts over the past few years, with Israeli-made television series, movies, actors, and actresses all making their mark on the world stage. One such amazing and award-winning film, which has gone on to the Haifa and Warsaw Film Festivals, is Antenna, a film about a Holocaust survivor whose neighbor leases out his roof to install an antenna. Take a look.
אתה תסיר את החולרה הזה מהבית שלי, אתה שומע? אני לא ישן בלילות, את הבריאות שלי אתה הורס. צעד אחד לתוך הגינה שלי ואני קורא למשטרה!
כן, אמא.
מה? ברגע זה ממש מזיין.
מה הוא עשה? מה? על איזה גג?
איפה אתם? 3 בנים הוא גידל.
תחנת מנסר הוא הקים לנו פה.
אסור לך להתרגז ככה.
הוא בן מוות.
אתה רוצה להרוג אותו?
לא יותר הגיוני להרוס את האנטנה קודם?
All right, now here with us today in the studio is film critic Ron Fogel and the writer and director of Antenna, Arik Rothstein. Thank you, both of you, for coming in. Very much appreciated. Now, my first question is for you, Arik. Tell me about the film. What's the main idea?
Well, the main story is actually, it's based on a true story, something that happened to my father. When his neighbor leased his roof of the house to the cellular company, and my father started freaking out about the radiation from the antenna, and it's kind of dragged the whole family into this like war against this neighbor.
Black
so
hole.
yeah, okay. So I use this story as a metaphor for stuff that I wanted to tell about Israeli families, about the dynamic of the Israeli family.
So what were some of the dynamics that you touched upon in the film that you really wanted to get out there?
A lot of it has to do with the way that the past, I think the past of our parents and the past of the Jewish people in general is affecting the everyday life of Israelis, even in ways that they are not completely aware of. Like in this family, the three sons are adults. They have their own lives, they have their own kids, they have their own problems. And in a way, they seem very independent and very not in touch with their father past. But actually, in the film, everything that you see that happens to them has to do with the father past, which lays over like a shadow over this family.
It's like Holocaust survivors. The kids of Holocaust survivors are oftentimes referred to as survivors themselves, in a sense.
In a sense, but the thing is that I didn't want to do a movie about like a second generation, about like intergenerational transference. I wanted to do an entertaining movie. And in my family, the dynamic is usually very funny and lots of black humor in it. And so I wanted to bring that to the screen. Because if you tell me, hey, let's go to see a movie of dealing with, issues of second generation, I wouldn't go.
It's a very heavy film, yeah.
I wouldn't go. So I wanted to make it like, I come from television. And it's very important for me that the movie would be very entertaining.
Yeah, this is your first film, is it not? Your first
it's my
first feature film?
Feature film, yeah. I've done a lot of television before, scripted television.
It's incredible. All right, well, Ron, I mean, you've seen the film, and
Yes.
What are your impressions of it? Is it sad and depressing, or is it comical and amazing?
It's sometimes sad, it's sometimes fun. It's a bit of a roller coaster, you can say. But Wim Wenders once said that if after 15 minutes when he watches a film, he doesn't see a local angle, he leaves the theater. And this film has universal themes, but you're watching an Israeli film made in Israel because of the grandfather who's an Holocaust survivor, because one of the sons is an officer in the army. And the thing that attracted to me to the film, it felt very authentic.
Wow.
I think that Ari captured the sense of the Israeli family in the 21st century, and that's the interesting thing about the film. Even if you think of it of a bit dramatic, a bit comical, but it's a very authentic film. I believed the film, and I have to say that Alex Peleg, the protagonist, and also Gila Almagor is his wife, are one of the leading Israeli veteran actors. Especially Alex Peleg plays magnificently. Only for him you should buy a ticket for the film.
All right, well, on that...
How old is he, by the way?
I agree. He's just turned 80.
Well, he looks amazing in the film, and I've seen the trailer, I've seen some of the clips. I cannot wait to see it, and actually on that note, unfortunately, we've run out of time. But yeah, it's Antenna, it's in theaters right now. Go and check it out. It's an incredible, incredible film. And thank you, both of you, for coming in today and telling us more about it.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, now it's been quite a week for archaeologists here in the Holy Land. Not just one, but two major discoveries have just been unearthed. The remains of a 3,000-year-old site used for pagan rituals and an ancient mosaic floor just outside the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem. The Israel Antiquities Authority is over the moon with the discovery of the ancient mosaic, which is believed to be at least 1,500 years old. The mosaic, which is beautifully preserved, was actually stumbled upon accidentally by a construction crew trying to lay cable lines. The tiles are inscribed in ancient Greek and mark the floor of what was believed to have been a boutique hotel dating back to the time of Emperor Justinian. This is the kind of discovery archaeologists only dream about, and clearly it only takes a little digging to find something amazing in Jerusalem. The second discovery was made in the Tel Burna archaeological dig in Israel's Judean foothills. Dozens of artifacts have just been unearthed in what experts now believe were the halls of an ancient pagan ritual site. Scarab beads, cultic vessels, memorial pillars, and ceremonial masks have all been recovered, pointing to evidence that the ancient hills of Judea were once home to pagan rituals. This is an excavation that's been ongoing since 2009, and it may have taken nearly 8 years, but now experts believe the presence of all kinds of deity objects point to a centralized courtyard within the grounds. This would indicate not just isolated worship, but rather habitual ritual practice. Archaeologists are continuing to dig in the area, but already these latest discoveries are revealing a wealth of long dormant history.
Now, Israel has been on the front lines of all kinds of medical breakthroughs related to cannabis, but this latest one might just take the edible cake. An Israeli team of researchers now believes that cannabis can be proven to effectively fight and perhaps even kill cancer.
Now, this is something scientists have been behind for years, but it was only recently that legal barriers surrounding medical marijuana research were taken down, giving experts the green light to explore and test the medical benefits of the cannabis plant. Israel has been on the cutting edge of these studies for years, revealing medical cannabis solutions for healing bone fractures, relieving pain from Parkinson's disease, and even preventing brain damage. But now, a team led by Dr. David Meiri of Israel's Technion Institute of Technology is conducting critical new research, which they believe may lead to a breakthrough in the fight against cancer. Now, before you get too excited, no, this probably does not mean you're going to get a prescription for daily bong hits. What Dr. Meiri believes is that tiny doses of cannabis extract, or microdosing, and I'm talking milligrams here, guys, could trigger cancer cells to self-destruct like they're naturally supposed to. This is essentially the same effect of traditional chemotherapy, but of course without the unpleasant side effects like hair and energy loss. And maybe just a little case of munchies instead.
So if you've ever wanted to break into the Israeli Hollywood scene, then you'll definitely need to know today's Hebrew word of the day, which is bimai, which means director. All right, now we've all got pretty strong opinions about who is the world's greatest bimai or film director. You've got all the classic bimaim like Hitchcock, Chaplin, Kurosawa, and Orson Welles, but how do you really compare a bimai like Stanley Kubrick with a bimai like Steven Spielberg, or against the all-time great bimai Martin Scorsese? Well, let's not forget the bimai also means a stage director too, which might just give John Cassavetes the edge since he pulled double bimai duty on both stage and screen. Take that, Ang Lee.
The weather is brought to you by international singer-songwriter Sabina. Make sure to check out her latest album, Purple Ribbons, and get updated for upcoming concerts.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be partly cloudy, but slightly warmer than last night with a low of 77 or 25 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect another rise in temperatures. It's going to be unseasonably hot with a high of 88 or 31 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.62 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for watching.